Need tech support.
Tech support.
I do. I can't get into eScribe.
I'm not a tech person. We're good to go there? Okay. All right, we will call the Regional District Okanagan Smilkameen regular board meeting to order. Ooh. Chance here to remove anything from the consent agenda? Anybody have anything to remove from the consent agenda? Seeing no hands, no removals there. Looking for a motion to approve the agenda. Moved, seconded. All those in favor? Thank you. Opposed? Motion carries. That brings us to the consent agenda. Corporate services. Motion to approve those. Moved. Seconder, thank you. Discussion. Seeing no hand, we'll call the question. All those in favor? Thank you. Opposed? Motion carries. Down to consent agenda. There is no consent agenda development services, is there?
Yeah.
There is? I'm not finding it on my...
E2.
A2.
Okay, there it is. On my agenda, it was stuck to the last page. Motion for consent agenda development services. Thank you. Moved. Seconder. Thank you. Call the question. All those in favor? Thank you. Opposed? Motion carries. Down to B, development services, bylaw enforcement, area E, CAO.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. So further to our discussion about the noise bylaw earlier under planning and development, we do have this one request for a noise exemption in area E. It's a developer that's moving forward on a development in Naramata, and they want to work longer than the permitted hours on a Sunday. So basically, they want to go from to 5:30, which is outside of the hours. So we're recommending that request be denied, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you on that. I will ask if the applicant is online and wishes to speak to the board, as this is a negative recommendation. Is anybody online that you're aware of, Danny? No? I'm not seeing anybody from what I've got either, so
Can you open up attendees?
I'll open it. If there is anybody online that wants to speak to this, please hit *3 or raise your hand button.
I don't see a name related to
All right.
that.
It's looking like there's nobody to speak to it, so I will go to Director Kazakovich for a motion.
Yes, I'd like to move the administrative recommendation. I can speak to it if seconded.
Okay, so you're moving to deny. Seconded, thank you. Go ahead, Director Kazakovich.
Yeah, thank you. As I mentioned earlier today, the noise control bylaw review came forward because I asked for that from citizens who wanted a change to Sundays. They didn't want any construction on Sundays. And as we found out earlier today, that we can't restrict construction, but we can still have noise control bylaw in place with times. So this request is asking to start at 8 a.m. and I just simply cannot support that on a Sunday morning. People need to be able to have a break from noise 7 days a week to do with construction. So, yeah, I just can't support that.
Okay. Any further discussion from the board on this? Seeing no hands, we'll call the question. All those in favor? Thank you. Those opposed? Motion carries. Down to C, development variance for electoral area C, CAO. You're muted. Oh, gosh.
This is a variance to the front yard from 4.5 meters to 2.78 meters, so that the owner can retain a mobile home at 1888 Willowbrook Road. Mr. Chair, we're recommending that this be approved.
Okay, thank you. I'll go to Director Knodel.
Thank you to the chair. I'm going to recommend alternative 1, that it be denied, and I will speak to it when.
Okay, so you're making the motion to deny. Seconder, thank you.
Right. This
Go ahead, Director Knodel, but before you go ahead, we usually ask if the
Sure.
applicant is wanting to speak to it, if he's on, or he or she is online, or their agent, in case they want to speak to the board. Same thing, if you are phoning in, please hit *3 or raise hand button. Is anybody on that you're aware of? Okay. Okay, I see him there. Please go ahead, Jeremy Lipen, I believe is how it's pronounced, or?
Yes, that's correct. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for allowing me to take this opportunity to speak. I am the applicant's son. I don't live on the property with my family. It's my brother and my parents' house. But I've done, I'll help them through this process. So we're asking for a variance of 5 feet at the front of the trailer. The whole trailer is not within the allotted 14 feet that it's supposed to be. Just kind of the front part is on the angle. I did send to Shannon some photos that I was hoping to share with you today about where it lies. The reason that the trailer was placed there was there was a little bit of not understanding that it had to be 14 and a half feet. They thought it was closer, and that was a little bit of ignorance on their part. But the main reason why it's on the angle and not at the main 14 and a half feet that it should be is to pre-existing septic and electrical that's already there. So if we were to move this 5 feet at the front and put it into compliance, it covers the septic hole, which we would then have to dig a new septic field and move that pre-existing one over, which then hurts like the agricultural land that is on the farm. So, and the pre-existing thing there was a pre-existing building that was torn down to make room for the mobile home that was actually right on the fence line when my family bought this. So it's not like this area is new to our structure. It already has a concrete pad that was pre-existing. All the utilities were pre-existing from a previous building. And we're just hoping that we can get to allow the trailer to remain just the front of it on an angle where it's kept to the 5 feet, so we don't have to wreck more agricultural land and dig up what could be usable farmland for my parents to use in the future.
Okay, thank you. I'll just check with the board, see if there's any questions. I'll go to Director Gettens first, please.
Thank
Go
you.
ahead.
Thank you, the chair. Are we able to see the photos that Jeremy here, Mr. Lippman, was referring to?
I sent them to Shannon. I don't know if they're available to, like, if you have them. If I can able to share my screen, I can probably find them on my computer.
Don't know they're available to us right now, but.
So if I could explain a little bit, also explain too at the same time, like the neighboring property, if you see it from like a Google Earth point of view, the next closest neighbor's house is 274 feet from where it is, and there's no line of sight to this trailer. So there's a barn and other farm equipment blocking it. So it's not really a nuisance to the neighbor, as there was a pre-existing building there. The mobile home went there because of pre-existing services. There was some questions on why my parents chose to put it on that spot, and the reason that it was chosen, it was the less disruption to the land. If they were to put it anywhere else, there's a creek that runs through the property, so they can't put it near the creek. And if they were to drive it across the property, they would, once again, we'd have to put a new septic field in and everything. And it just kind of hurts agricultural land. And I work in the agricultural business, and protection of agricultural land to us is hugely important. So I'm hoping, like I said, that we can be granted this. And like I did say, it's only the front part of the trailer. It's not the whole trailer. It's just on an angle. So if you look at the trailer as a square footage, about 19% of the trailer is not where it should be.
Okay, thank you. Director Knodel, you had a question?
Not a question, no, it's my comments on it. This, if there's no other questions.
Can we save the comments until we
Sure.
deal with the applicant? Any questions for this in? Seeing no other hands? Thank you, Jeremy, for the presentation. I'll put it to the board and we'll have the discussion and see where it goes. So Director Knodel, please.
All right, this went to my APC, and a special meeting was called. And there was a previous concern with the previous building, and this was known. So there was an opportunity to correct this encroachment when the building was being placed, and that opportunity was ignored. I believe mainly for the purpose of getting it on the pad, the existing pad, not extending the pad. The move is approximately 5 to 8 feet to be compliant, but it represents an encroachment of roughly 60% of the allowable setback. The distance to the neighbor's residence is not relevant, as nothing in our setback bylaw refers to the property line, or only refers to the property line and not to the placement of adjacent buildings. So it's out of compliance whether the neighbor's building is there or not. My understanding of variances are to be for topographical issues and not for convenience. Otherwise, why have the bylaw in the first place? They wanted to fit it on the pad that was there. I understand that, but they did have an opportunity to correct it. They do have a very reputable contractor that I believe can rectify that for them. But again, that's only my opinion. Thank you.
Okay. Any further discussion on this? Director Bush, go ahead, please.
Well, to me, if there's no problem with the neighbors and this is what a variance is for, like, if there's no problem to the people surrounding them, I can't see a problem with this not going ahead.
Okay, thank you for that. Any further discussion? Seeing no hands, I will call the question, keeping in mind this is a motion to deny that's on the floor right now. And it is a rural vote, so all those in favor? All right, thank you. Those opposed? Everybody but Director Knodel. So it is defeated. Looking for another motion on this? Director Bush?
I'll make the motion for the recommended motion.
Okay, you're moving to approve. Seconded, thank you. Any discussion on that? Seeing Director Roberts, you have a hand up?
Thank you to the chair. I think it is an important topic, and I do understand the necessity to maintain those things that we set as bylaws. But I think it's important when I think the point brought up by the son of the landowner was I was swayed by that in regards to having to put up another septic field, understanding the tank and field and the difference, especially usually on the agricultural land, and our desire to save as much as possible. So that was the compelling piece of information for me.
Okay. Any further discussion? Seeing no hands, this is again rural vote, and this is to approve. All those in favor? Okay, thank you. Those opposed? Director Canodal opposed, motion carries. Down to C2, development variance for electoral area H, CAO.
This is an application for a front yard variance and a height variance in Tulameen, Mr. Chair. So the front yard variance is from 7.5 meters to 3 meters, and the height variance is to raise it from 4.5 meters to 6.7 meters. It's to replace a garage on a residential property. And the concern for administration is that the garage appears larger than the principal residence. So we are recommending that this be denied, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you for that. As this is a negative recommendation, again, we ask if the applicant or agent is online and wanting to speak to it to please raise their hand or press *3 on their phone. I didn't see their names on the... You do have someone? Pardon me? A call-in user? Okay, it's not recognized, but if you could please call in user 13, it says. Please identify yourself and go ahead.
Hi, thank you for allowing me to speak. It's John McIntosh, the owner of the property calling.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
The reason for my variance application on both of these, one was my height application was to make the garage appear to be the same as the home. Being a gambrel roof, the height restrictions that are currently in place would be unable to do so. My variance as far as the frontal setback is to allow space for my septic field. If I was to push the building any further back, I'd almost be on top of my septic tank. So I'm looking to have it moved forward a bit. Now, yesterday, I spent a few minutes and went down the street into regards to the rest of the properties around me. And they are anywhere from 9 feet to 5 feet off the fence line, and I'm asking for a little greater than 10 feet. So it wouldn't be any different than any of the other applicants in the neighborhood. That's all I've got to say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'll just check with the board and see if they have any questions for you in regards to this. Seeing no hands at this point, we thank you for giving us the presentation, and we'll set it back to the board, and I'll go to Director Coyne.
Yeah, I'd like to make the alternate recommendation to allow this facility to be built.
Okay, so you're making the alternate to approve it?
Yep.
Seconded, thank you. Any further discussion on this? Looking for hands. Seeing none. Again, this is a rural vote. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Thank you. Those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Item C3, Subdivision Servicing Bylaw Amendment, CAO.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. So I have two bylaws with regards to water. One is the subdivision servicing bylaw, and the other is our water regulatory bylaw. And at the present time, they conflict. The subdivision bylaw provides that a new lot can use a well, and the water regulatory bylaw says that if it's within a water system and there's infrastructure running in front of the lot, that they're obligated to hook on to the water system. So the subdivision bylaw, as we're aware, is an old one. It's 21 years old now. And the water regulatory bylaw is fairly recent. So we think the water bylaw is superior, that it would be beneficial if there is infrastructure running in front of a lot that the property owner hook on. And in a specific example of this was our recent request in Falder for whether we should approve a subdivision based on it being within the Falder water system. And at that point, we were concerned certainly about the capacity of the aquifer, also the infrastructure. But in the end, Falder residents in the water system pay on a parcel tax. So the property was paying taxes anyway. Aside from all that, we need to bring some consistency between our bylaws. So we're saying that we should amend the subdivision servicing bylaw to make it consistent with the water regulatory bylaw, in that if it's in a water system, there's infrastructure in front, it should hook onto the water system. And that is our recommendation, Mr. Chair.
Director Bush, you had a question?
I'll make that recommendation.
I was gonna, somebody had already asked about that, but go to Director Gettens first.
Thanks. Sorry, I'd like to defer this only because it does impact the Falder water system in a little bit of a unique way, because that system is at capacity. We don't have clear knowledge on the Meadow Valley aquifer yet, but that is forthcoming. They will be finding out about that. So my concern is if we move ahead with this without that information, we really don't know the impact of those properties in Falder. So I feel like this is a project that's in the process, but I think it's important to get the information because it does impact Falder properties a little bit differently than other water systems.
Okay, thank you. So in order to defer it, we still need a motion on the floor.
Okay,
So I'll accept your motion to approve. We need a seconder. Thank you. And then
defer.
you would like to make the motion to defer.
Right.
Seconder for that. Thank you. We'll call a question on deferral. And this is a corporate vote, if I'm not mistaken. So all those in favor? Thank you very much. Opposed? Motion carries. Down to C4. This is the street lighting policy that was the subject of our public hearing this morning. CAO.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. And it was at the board 16th for first and second reading, and it's just now back for third and adoption.
Okay, thank you. Looking for direction on this. Mover, thank you. Seconder, thank you. Discussion? Seeing no hands. Again, this is a corporate vote. All those in favor? Thank you. Opposed? Motion carries. Down to finance. D1, Town of Oliver Security Issuing Bylaw, CAO.
Yeah, since the town of Oliver has resolved to borrow funds in order to make the necessary improvements to the Gallagher Lake water siphon. And because of the Municipal Finance Authority guidelines, they have to do that through the regional district. So we are recommending that the board give first, second, third, and adoption to the authority for the town of Oliver to borrow for the siphon.
Okay, thank you. I'll go to Director Johansson.
Thank you, Chair. I'll make the administrative recommendation.
Okay, it's moved, seconded. Thank you. Any discussion on this? Director Monteith?
To the chair, is it not adopted after it's approved, or does it go out to referendum? I'm not sure on the process.
It would have been dealt with through Oliver, but go ahead, Director.
I can speak
Johansson.
to that. In our letters patent, we don't have to get consent to borrow for the Gallagher Lake siphon.
Thank you.
Good to know. Any further
It would have been
discussion?
nice if somebody came up with some cash,
Yeah. Always is.
but unfortunately, we did get 5 million from the province, so I will give them kudos there, but nobody else contributed
Yeah.
other than the ratepayers. So.
All right, any further discussion on this? Seeing none, this is a weighted corporate vote, but we'll just take it as a corporate vote, and unless it's really close, then we'll have to count the weighted part of it. So all those in favor? Thank you. Opposed? Carried unanimously, so no issues with the weighted part. Legislative Services, E1, Oliver and District Arena Loan Authorization, CAO.
Yeah, so this is our share of the funds to renovate the Oliver Arena, Mr. Chair. We got a grant for the rest of it, and then they're also using a reserve fund. So this is now back to us for adoption.
Okay, Director Knodel? You prepared to make that?
Yes, I'm prepared to make the administrative recommendation, please.
Okay, thank you. Seconded. Any discussion on this? Seeing none. Again, weighted corporate. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Thank you. Opposed? Again, carried unanimously. Down to E2, Electoral Area G, Cemetery Operations Contribution Service, CAO.
Yeah, so Area G has been contributing to cemeteries in Area G, Mr. Chair, just through grants. And this then is to legitimize the annual expense by creating a service. So we're recommending that this get first, second, third in adoption, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. I'll go to Director Roberts, please. Go ahead.
Thank you. I'll make the recommended motion.
Moved, seconded. Thank you very much. Any discussion on this? Seeing none, again, corporate
Dead
vote.
issue,
All
I
those. Only your issue. All those in. That was bad joke. All those in favor. Thank you. Those opposed? Motion carries. No items removed from the consent agenda, so down to F, CAO. CAO report.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Danny, can you bring up the state and local emergency report, please? I sent out a late report this morning to the board regarding extensions of state and local emergency for the flooding event. The board's aware that the chair has the authority to declare a state of local emergency, but with the intent that he would bring it to the board for ratification at the earliest convenience. So we've been operating in BG and H over the past month with regards to the November flooding event. And while the response is over, we're still in recovery. So we don't need any further states of local emergency in areas B or G, but we are still very active in area H, and that is where we still have some orders on properties. So we need to extend that a little bit further. But we are recommending that the board ratify the states of local emergency that we've been operating on over the past month, Mr. Chair. So we need those resolutions for B, for G, and then in H up until the end of the month. And then we'll reassess and determine whether we need to extend those further. And then we're obligated to send those in to the Minister of State for emergency preparedness. So that's our recommendation, Mr. Chair.
A motion on that? Moved, seconded, thank you. Any discussion? Director Bush?
Yeah, so in area B, I'm just concerned about, like, is there gonna be any, I don't know, like repairs or mitigation or in the future before flood time or?
CAO?
So that's always the discussion we have after an event like this. And we don't have any flood management programs within the regional district. So the mitigation part of the response is somewhat limited. We rely on the province in order to do that. And I know that they are undertaking some dike repairs. Certainly the one that jeopardized Highway 3, they're making, MOTI is making repairs on that dike, hopefully to curtail any future road disruptions due to flooding on Highway 3. That's around the Bromley Rock area. But other than that, it's sort of a hit and miss. They pick out areas that they want to undertake. There's no ongoing program for orphan dikes. I think the province has undertaken responsibility to review that policy, and there may be some action in the future. But at this point, unless a local government steps up and says, yes, we'll make repairs, and then we'll own it, there is no program for that right now.
I think that's meaning you have to advocate for your area with the province, Director Bush. You had a follow-up? Go ahead.
Yeah, would like to let people know that we have a severe problem in Area B down by the Chapaka Bridge, which there's an overflow channel to take, because the river backs up at the bridge, right? So it's a bottleneck. So there is an overflow channel, but it wasn't big enough, and it isn't big enough, and now the dikes are all gone. It's going to probably wipe out the Chapaka Road, which would be, I guess, on the Indian Reserve, and so it's quite a combination of ministries and whatnot, and seems like nothing ever happens because there's so many people involved, or so many ministries involved, and federal and everything. So I just thought I'd let people know.
Thank you. Any further discussion on this? Seeing none. Again, this is corporate.
Director Robert.
Oh, am I missing Director Roberts? Sorry. You went small, so I don't see you up there. Go ahead, Director Roberts.
Thank you to the chair. And part of that was what my question, which kind of follows up Director Bush's, but was partly answered by the chair. Because by Bromley Rock and also down Highway 3 at the 4357 address are two places that have from in 2017, 2018, and caused issue with the highway, and they did some diversion in regards to those flooding issues, but also part of the diking that was put in place by the province or supported through the state of emergency had caused further damage because of the incompletion of those dikes. So I was wondering, does this not having the state of emergency go a little bit further in Area G, does that create a cause and effect issue with the province, with MOTI working on solidifying the dikes that were actually destroyed in the latest flood that were theirs?
I would suspect that they would still be covered under the provincial state of emergency there, but I'll check with the CAO.
Yeah, so the Ministry of Transportation's primary objective, of course, is safety on highways, especially numbered highways. So whether there's a state of local emergency or not, or a state of provincial emergency, if they think a road is jeopardized, they would intervene in order to protect those roads in the future. And we certainly saw that during floods on Park Grill, where they put in the appropriate culverts underneath Highway 97. So they do that on their own. If they wouldn't have intervened in this, we wouldn't even be getting the repairs to the dike by Bromley Rock, because they do that as part of the MOTI mandate, not an emergency program mandate. There's lots and lots of area down the Similkameen, and I'm certainly Tulameen River now too, that needs repair. So it's going to have to be, I think, a bigger picture, and it's going to have to go under that provincial review of orphan dikes, I think, is what's going to be required.
Okay, thank you for that. Any further discussion? Seeing none, call question. All those in favor? Thank you very much. Opposed? Motion carries. Back to the CAO. Anything further in your report?
I was going to mention, Mr. Chair, we've had some dialogue lately on COVID protocol in the boardroom. And with the way that the recommendations and orders are now from the Public Officer of Health, there doesn't seem to be any reason why all members of the board could not come back into the boardroom if they wanted to. There are no distancing requirements anymore. They say there should be a reasonable distancing effort, but it's left up to each individual to make whatever they feel comfortable with. There is a masking requirement if you're wandering around a public building, but if you're at a desk or a table, no masking requirement anymore. There is certainly the requirement to continue washing of hands and sanitation of desks and that sort of thing, but there is no requirement. In fact, for public meetings like we have, there are no restrictions on capacity or vaccine passports. It's pretty well left up to the board and to determine if they're comfortable in coming in or not. So we still do have some technological issues with the supply chain. Yeah, we need to know how many are coming in so Danny can rent microphones. The stuff that we've ordered is still on the road, hopefully somewhere. But we can make arrangements to accommodate 19 members in the boardroom if you're comfortable doing that. But certainly, you know, for those coming distances, the virtual participation is certainly welcome as well. But as far as who should come in for me or whether there's a restriction, not anymore. And that would be it for me, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you for that. I think we will continue to inquire as to who's coming, just to make it easier for Danny to be prepared. For sure. Moving down to Chair's report. At this point, not a lot to report there, other than we will continue to check with the board and board representations. Nothing under municipal finance or insurance. OBWB, I'll go to Director McCordoff.
Thank you very much. At our last meeting in December, we did have a presentation from Lisa Scott from Oasis on invasive mussels, and it's certainly an issue that is being brought forward at all times because there were some mussel-fouled boats that got through the inspection, and some of them had to be quarantined for a month, and some had to be washed and set aside. And we at this point, we do not think, looking at the villagers, that people have off the ends of their docks looking for them. The baskets, there doesn't seem to be any zebra quagga mussels in the lakes yet. And that's the big if. So OBWB is continuing to write letters federally and provincially, and we have other people writing letters as well. So it continues to be a hard push. There are some education guides that have been put out. Our relationship with water, they're in many of the school districts, and it concerns Western knowledge and traditional knowledge, and Silk knowledge keepers are involved with doing that. They've been very well received in the schools. And the Okanagan Lake Regulation System, which I know many of you are concerned about, Anna Warwick-Sears went to the budget people that were looking after that. I can't remember the name of it. But anyway, she had asked for $1 million a year to update that system. It might take a while, but it looks like in lieu of what's happened with water things all over and source protection and all that kind of stuff, that we probably will be getting that. So there will be more information on that later. Thank you.
Okanagan Film Commission, Director Gettins. Nothing there, okay. Okanagan Regional Library, Director Monteith.
Nothing yet.
Nothing there. Sterile insect release, Director Bush.
Yeah, so, do you all get this, board report, or is it just me?
Just do.
Might be just you.
Oh, okay, that's too bad, because I think you should all get it, but, so the province has done a tree fruit industry stabilization plan. And one of the recommendations is, that an assessment of the Okanagan Kootenai sterile insect release program be conducted to determine the value the program provides to the apple industry. I'm sure you all know that the apple industry has shrunk since the beginning from 25,000 acres down to 7,300 now, which is really put the pressure on the funding because there's not that many people putting into it now, parcel tax wise. So if the program's determined to be critical to the success of the industry and its viability is at risk, funding models that could be put into place to support the producer portion of the program costs should be considered. So the SERP prepares to ask the senior government to return as funding partners for the program until the apple industry is able to rebuild. We're working with the government to see what we can do for the producers.
Okay, thank you for that. Simia, anything to report there, Director Knodel? I see him shaking his head no, so. All right, thank you. Starling Control, Director Bush.
Yeah, so there's been no meetings and no changes.
Thank you. Nothing for the Fire Chief Liaison Committee. Nothing for the Joint Council. Hospital District, anything to report there, Director Johansson?
Nothing really new other than we're looking forward to getting the Interior Health capital requests and some additional documentation in the requests regarding PCN plan.
Okay. Thank you. I think we're all looking forward to that. Director's motions. I believe there was one from Director Coyne. I will go to you.
Thank you. I think you all got a copy of a motion I'd like to put up. The motion reads that the regional district do a complete review of our emergency services program, including but not limited to working with the town of Princeton to have a member of the emergency services team, a shared employee with the town of Princeton and the regional district.
And your wishes on this were to deal with it immediately or just putting it as a notice of motion?
No, I'd like to make it a motion so that, because it's gonna have budget implications. So we need to get something started on it relatively quick so we can get an idea of what kind of money we would need to put into this for the upcoming season.
Okay, so you're making the motion. A seconder, thank you. I see some hands on that. Any discussion on this? Oh, sorry, Director Monteith, go ahead, please.
To the
Getting
chair.
tongue-tied.
Sorry, to the chair, looking for some clarity on the words review. So what are we reviewing with the emergency services specifically?
Okay, I'll ask Director Coyne to speak on that. Maybe it's his motion.
So over the past 7 years, I've been involved in 4 major incidences. Ironically, it's been 2 floods and 2 fires where we had major evacuations of many people. I don't even want to try and remember how many. And in each incident, we have identified issues that have come up. Now, as I stated at strategic planning, we've had a complete changeover in staff, and the issues are still there. So that tells me we've got a problem somewhere in our system. So it's not to go out on a witch hunt here, but it's to try and identify where these gaps are in our system and look at fixing them. So and the reason for the portion of the motion to have a joint employee with the town of Princeton is it's happened a few times now where, like down at the Lawrence Ranch, if be west of Karamias, the river has a tendency to flood the highway and close Highway 3. This time it happened, 11 kilometers east of Princeton that closed Highway 3. So to have RDOS staff get here in these emergencies is very expensive when you got to hire a helicopter to bring somebody over here. And so we need to have somebody that's actually part of our emergency services program in Princeton that can kind of look after the Similkameen end of the valley. So that's the reason for that one. Now, Grand Forks and in the Kootenai Boundary Regional District, they had to go through this same exercise after Grand Forks' flood because they identified issues over there. So we just need to look at the entire service and see where the issues lie. I'm not saying that people aren't doing a good job. I think we have an amazing team. Our EOC runs incredibly well. But on that note, when our EOC is running really well, everything else comes to a grinding halt. So we have to look at that as well. That's why I say a complete look at our entire emergency services program, I think, is overdue. Because it's now a full-time gig, basically. So, we get, normally they get the winter off. Well, this year we kind of messed that plan up. So, I think we need to do a complete review. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Any further discussion on this? Have an idea of what he was asking for? Seeing any other hands? Director Monteith again?
To the chair, my community also has concerns about the EOC service period in general. So I would like to see all facets of that service. So that would probably include communication or like fire smart, like just all those sort of sub-services, because I feel like all those services are parallel to providing a good service overall. So it might be a larger scope than just one specific item.
Okay.
Well, this is the entire services.
Anything further, Director Gettins, please?
Yeah, thank you. I think this is a good idea to always do a review, especially when we've had these ongoing emergencies, and it seems to be constantly in an emergency. And I agree with Director Coyne on that impact of our day-to-day that citizens also want us to deliver, and that we just can't keep up doing constant emergencies and constant delivery of service. My question is, I guess, to the chair, is this possible to do this kind of a review in time for budget and keep that sense of urgency that I'm hearing from Director Coyne? I'm just curious about the possibility of it, or is this a bigger project than what we're discussing?
I think I'd have to go to the CAO on that, but I'll go to CAO Newell first and then Director Coyne.
It's always a good idea to do a review, especially after a significant event. So there probably will be some sort of a flooding review. I would say the province will get involved again, and we should certainly do our own and study the interaction with Princeton. But an overall review of the emergency response plan, not a bad idea at all, Mr. Chair. We could come up with a budget figure to do the study. And I'm pretty sure we could get that into budget committee prior to, not by first reading. Mr. Sfino has already closed off his report and it's bringing the bylaw forward for first reading on January 6th. But certainly before we brought the budget bylaw back for second or third, we could have an estimate of what a study like this might cost.
Okay, thank you for that, Director Coyne, and then Director Gettens.
Yeah, that was my whole intention, was to make sure there was money in the budget to be able to do the review. So that gives them, you know, a month or so to figure out what it would cost to do the review, because that's not gonna happen overnight. That's for the amount of consultation and whatnot with other regional districts that needs to take place is gonna be a pretty big job. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Director Gettens?
Yeah, thanks. Just with that comment, I would just say I would support this. I think it's a good idea.
All right. Looking around for any more discussion on this? Seeing none, we'll call the question. All those in favor? Thank you. Those opposed? Motion carries. Any other director's motions? Seeing no hands on that, we'll go down to board members' verbal updates. Anybody have a update they want to make from their area or municipality? Seeing Director Coyne Senior, please go ahead.
Yeah, so things are kind of sort of progressing out here. Last night was a really, really difficult night for me. We're getting into the really bad scenarios where people are cut off from being able to get in and out of their places. These are people that I've known all my life. So it's really at the point of recovery. I mean, it's very early stages of recovery, but this is the point where people are, it's really sinking in, and it's really kind of devastating to some families that are potentially going to lose a lot more than what they thought they were going to. You know, we have families up in Tulameen that, you know, their houses are now islands. And how do you deal with the bureaucracy to be able to even get to go to work on your house, let alone the fact that you know your house is destroyed, but what can you salvage? So this is the stage that we're kind of getting into now. Sean and Ann have been absolutely amazing at trying to figure out ways to help these people. I don't know what they're going to do. Nobody's got answers right now, so they're pounding away at it, and I have nothing but thanks to them for what they're doing. So it's going to be a terrible, terrible Christmas for a lot of people out here that, you know, they've lost everything, but now they thought they lost everything. Now they're getting to the point where it's really sinking in that everything's a lot more than they thought it was. So anyways, that's kind of where we are. On the good note, Mother Nature's been pretty kind to us. When you guys got a foot of snow over there in the Okanagan, we only got 4 inches, so that was good. It didn't bury all that garbage that people have taken out of their houses onto the street that are still waiting to get picked up. It has turned cold. It was, you know, minus 14 this morning. It's supposed to be minus 15 tomorrow. So that mud is now frozen mud. So it makes it that much more difficult for people. But the overwhelming generosity of people from all over the province has just been absolutely phenomenal. And yeah, so anyways, that's kind of it. And yeah, we're all still plugging away at it.
Okay. Well, thank you for the update on that. And just know our hearts are with you and your constituents over there. It's been rough for all those in this Milkameen, actually. Director Vasilaki, did you have a question?
No, no
comment?
question. It's just that I'd also like to say my heart goes out, not just mine, but the whole city of Penticton's heart goes out to Princeton and Tulameen and all the other areas in British Columbia with the unfortunate situation with the floods. But on a happier note, I'd like to wish everybody a very, very Merry Christmas and a much, much happier New Year in 2022 than we've had in the past 2 years. So please take care of yourselves and look in on your neighbors continuously to make sure that everybody's safe. Thank you very much.
Good comments, Director Vasilaki. Anybody else have an update from Director Coyne Jr.? Please go ahead.
Yeah, I haven't talked much about what we've been up to, so I'll give you guys a quick update. We've been working with the Ministry of Transportation, as you might have heard. The Coquihalla is going to be reopening, I believe, next week. And that's going to allow some unessential travel to be able to go over the Hope Princeton again. If you are going to head that way, I just want to just say it again. Please, please, please be careful. It's a mess up there. The roads beat up pretty bad, so just take your time. We're working with BC Housing right now to try to secure interim housing for everybody. We're looking at putting them up at the industrial park in a camp type situation. I believe we're working with the regional district to try to figure out how many people from Tulameen, Comont, and the Highway 3 area that are going to need housing as well. We've been able to source out some like ATCO type trailers right now. We're just waiting for approvals from the province so we can do that and put in the infrastructure to service that camp. Last night, good news last night, we did the food drive for the food hamper. The community again showed how big their hearts were. And we filled up the old Elks Hall with tons and tons of food. It was amazing. So, you know, again, I got to thank my community for the resiliency. It's pretty amazing. Community Foundation is still supporting us. They've got a fund that you can donate to. That money goes right to the flood victim. Very little overhead cost, and that money isn't going to be used for the town. It's going to be right to the people that need it the most. And also on their website right now, I know a lot of people in the Okanagan love wine, so they've got an auction going for wine. I believe I think it ends tomorrow. So go and bid on some wine. They've got some great choices there. And you can go on their website, cfso.net. And again, all the money that they raise will be going straight to the flood victims in the area here. So I think that's all I need to say. We're plugging along. You know, it's a hard time of year right now, but the community is still together and we're still supporting each other. And I want to thank everybody who's reached out and said kind words and sent nice messages. I haven't been able to respond to all of them. I think I have 1,800 unanswered emails right now that I'll try to get that over the Christmas holidays, but just thank you to everybody. Merry Christmas.
Thank you, Spencer. Merry Christmas to you. Anybody else with an update from their community? Or seeing nothing there, I will just extend my Christmas greetings to everybody here at the board and all the best. And let's hope 2022 starts off on a better note than what we ending the year with. So we do have some in-camera minutes to deal with. So I got to read this out. A recommendation that we go in camera here, that in accordance with section 90.1I-90.1K and 90.2B of the Community Charter, the board closed the meeting to the public on the basis of the receipt of advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose. Negotiations and related discussions respecting the proposed provision of municipal service that are at their preliminary stages and that, in the view of council, would reasonably be expected to harm the interests of the municipality if they were held in the public, and the consideration of information received and held in confidence relating to negotiations between the municipality and the provincial government or the federal government, or both, or between the provincial government or the federal government, or both, and a third party. So looking for a motion to go in camera. Moved, seconded, thank you. All those in favor? Thank you. Opposed? Motion carried.